In the number 5 spot, we have a giant sea scorpion, also known as Jackalopeterus renene. It lives in freshwater lakes and streams, unleashing all 8 feet of its arthropodic range in unsuspecting victims. Though referred to as a sea scorpion, it was really more of an oversized lobster, in fact, which does nothing to increase its hideousness, or its claws, which were the size of a grown man's head.
Good thing to know, next time I go for a dip in good old Lake Ontario, I don't have to worry about these giant death lobsters.
If you swim in Lake Ontario, you gotta worry about turning neon.
Very true, very true. Moving on to number 4, we got Steller sea cow. These things were huge. In 1741, the exploration of the North Pacific Ocean was well underway and they discovered Alaska, which is really cool, but they also found a mammal never before seen. German naturalist George Steller named these sea cows, which were 29 to 32 feet in length and weighed a whopping 22,000 pounds. They were quiet and peaceful, which made hunting them very easy, and then hunters quickly realized that they were tasty as hell. Also, their fatty tissue and skin, it did good in trade, so within 27 years these things were extinct. Yeah, that's 1768. Moving on to number 3, we've got the Pyrenean ibex, which went extinct not once, but twice. The ibex's extinction is something of a mystery, with possible causes ranging from an inability to compete with other species for food or climate conditions. In 1993, it was estimated that there were only 10 left of its kind, and then in 2000, well, they went extinct altogether. Although they did grab DNA samples from the very last one. In 2009, they were able to clone a new ibex, but it died shortly after birth. There is hope that one day they can bring them back once again. Next up at number 2, we got the Tasmanian Tiger, who actually has more in common with a kangaroo than a tiger, but if you took a look at it, what would you name it? It had a pouch to carry its young and was a nocturnal hunter who mainly fed on birds and small animals. It went extinct in Australia 1,000 years ago because it was unable to compete for food against them kangaroos. Then in Madagascar, it thrived for some time, but then dogs were introduced to this island and then humans got annoyed with them, and shortly after, well, they went extinct. The last of its kind lived in the Hobart Zoo and died in 1936, but some still report sightings. Finally, in the number 1 spot, we got one of my favorites. I'm talking about the woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoths roamed the earth for tens of thousands of years. Most populations disappeared between 14,000 to 10,000 years ago, and the last population died off 4,000 years ago. Now, for the longest time, the extinction of the woolly mammoth was thought to be because of climate change, and yes, that did play a factor, but new research suggests it was also those gosh darn hungry humans. When the Ice Age ended, humans advanced northwards, exploring new territories, and one can only imagine how a woolly mammoth could provide enough meat, bones, and skin to house and feed an entire army. So they became a pretty hot commodity.
In the number 5 spot, we have the woolly mammoth. I know what you're all thinking, these things are huge, why would we want them to come back to life? Well, it turns out humans and mammoths coexisted quite well since the Ice Age times, and our species probably wouldn't be around today if it weren't for the mammoth and all that stuff you could do with one if you hunted it. So, just in case we go through another Ice Age, which for us Canadians honestly is basically every winter, it would be kind of nice to have these guys around again.
In the number 4 spot, we have Gigantopithecus. What a weird name. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yeti, the Abominable Snowman, whatever you want to call it, these guys are all fiction. At least now they are. Once upon a time, they used to exist.
About 100,000 years ago, an ape this big lived in South Asia. Gigantopithecus stood more than 10 feet tall and weighed over 1,200 pounds. And comparing this to something else, most gorillas, they weigh about 400 pounds, so this thing is quite big.
Scientists are still wondering why on earth this guy went extinct, or did he? Perhaps that's why they still got all those YouTube videos. Him walking around? Is he still here? Not in South Asia, he's like at a Burger King in Colorado.
And in the number 3 spot, we have Titanoboa, which is the largest anaconda on record, stretching 27 feet. This thing, believe it or not, is taller than Michael McRedden right here.
Now that was the anaconda. This guy, Titanoboa, he would stretch out to 40 or 50 feet. He also weighed 2,500 pounds. What a pig.
Holy crap, that is one big thing. It can crush you to death if it wanted to. So without dispute, this thing is the king of the jungle.
Yeah, like even like Superstar's LL Cool J, he'd turn down a movie to like fight one because he'd just be like, this is scary, I want nothing to do with this. Why did I think of LL Cool J? Now we have Dinosuchus, who comes in at the number 2 spot. Now if you think dinosaurs are badass, this thing used to eat T-Rexes for breakfast. It grew in excess of 39 feet and weighed close to 10 tons. This thing was more or less just an oversized crocodile. It lived 73 million years ago, and its favorite meal? Yeah, giant lizards. Dinosaurs. Kinda like eating your buddy. You gotta eat.
Like modern crocodiles, Deinonychus would wait quietly in the water, watching for its prey and unexpectedly just eats it. It would literally leap out of the water and drag its prey in. And it would use its long dull teeth to just clamp on.
Now they say crocodiles are some of the most advanced species to ever be on this planet because throughout the years of evolution, they've hardly changed. This guy, he went extinct because he ran out of big things to eat for breakfast. Like Stegosaurus.
Now, at the number 1 spot, we have finally made it. We're talking about Megalodon.
Now there are a few other names for this guy, but we're just gonna go with the giant shark. Too much pronunciation in this video, I'm exhausted. Now currently the largest shark in the ocean is the whale shark, and although it sounds like it could do some serious damage, it's a real big wuss. All it eats is plankton.
Megalodon, on the other hand, is totally out of control. So this thing probably lived around 1.5 to 28 million years ago. I mean, damn, that is a long time. That is like your great, I'm gonna be here all day, grandparents. It was likely one of the largest and most powerful shark ever. It was probably around 65 feet long.
In all seriousness though, this thing was such a badass, it could eat a sedan in one big bite. First up in the number 5 spot, we've got the dodo bird. Off the eastern coast of Madagascar lies an island known as Beretus. The dodo bird thrived here due to a lack of predators. Everything was fine and dandy for these birds until 1598 when Dutch sailors decided to settle on the island. And these men and women quickly took notice that these birds, they were fearful of nothing because they'd never met a predator before. They were named dodo for how dumb they were perceived and were hunted into extinction simply because they were an easy dinner. And apparently not even a tasty one. Within 100 years, they were all gone.
Up next in the number 4 spot, we have the passenger pigeon. But Roya, just go outside, we have tons of pigeons. Yes, but the passenger pigeon held a special significance for many Native American tribes. The Huron people believed that passenger pigeons were the reincarnation of the departed, so bringing them back would sort of be a symbolic way of bringing the deceased back to life as well. Comforting or creepy? You decide. Moving on to the number 3 spot, we have the saber-toothed tiger. Not because Diego is my favorite character from Ice Age, but because predatory animals are extremely important to maintaining populations at a controlled level to sustain the environment. And the saber-toothed tiger was an excellent wide-ranged predator. Well, actually, not excellent enough, clearly. Next up at the number 2 spot is the dodo. These birds are famous for being so stupid, they basically drove themselves into extinction. Now if only some people I knew could do that as well. So while bringing them back may not last very long, it is possible that we could crossbreed them to create a dodo that is slightly more self-aware and won't just run into the jaws of its predators. And why should we do this? Simply put, this thing is hilarious to look at, and it's nice to know that nature has a sense of humor. Finally, in the number 1 spot, we have Neanderthals. Otherwise known as cavemen, the Neanderthals technically weren't humans like us, but they were a subspecies of ancient human. So can you imagine the field day biologists, psychologists, sociologists, any kind of ologist would have if we could bring back these close relatives? They would provide such a rich insight into how we developed and how we can keep going as a race. But there's one question. Is this a smart idea?